Good morning. What a joy it is to be with you this morning. I'm so grateful to join you in worship today. As so many of us have done or tried not to do lately, actually, I was browsing social media one day and I saw a quote that a colleague posted about something one of his lay leaders said in response to something that was happening at their congregation, something that some others thought might be dangerous. And he said, "Courage can't exist without danger." It really struck a nerve with me, especially in these days where there has been so much talk and emphasis on risks to our physical safety and risk to our emotional well-being. So of course, like a good UU minister, I went to the dictionary. Sometimes I think the dictionary is our lectionary. And if you don't know what lectionary is, go to the dictionary. Anyway, I looked up both risk and courage. Risk, defined as a verb, says to expose to hazard or danger. Courage, on the other hand, as defined, says mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. These are certainly two different things. There are always risks in life. Every time you get into a car, you take a risk. Usually it's a low risk, depending on who's driving, which is a couple's conversation for another day. But many or most things we do in this world have elements of risk to them, some small, some great. There are some things that have always seemed like very small risks that during these pandemic days take on a whole new significance, like going to the grocery store, or eating dinner out, or going to a movie, or perhaps holding a rally without masks and no social distancing. The list of what feels risky right now has grown substantially since March. But just because I make a decision to go sit on the patio of a restaurant and eat a meal prepared and served by someone other than myself or my spouse doesn't mean I'm being courageous. Yes, I still may be facing danger, but I would not call myself courageous because I can't stand one more meal at my house and I'm risking the sanitation procedures of potbellies to feed me and keep me safe. Maybe it would be a good thing to split these things into what I will call level 1 danger and level 2 danger. Level 1 danger is what I just described. Level 1 danger is the danger that comes from calculating your comfort about certain risks and how your decisions could impact your health and safety. Level 2 danger seems to be more significant and implies a serious nod to the concept of courage, or mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. Let me break this down a little bit because what I'd like to focus on is moral strength. And in this community, moral strength is about what our faith tradition teaches, calls us to, and asks us to practice. A couple of years ago at UUCF, we made a decision to hang a banner outside of our congregation that, among other things, had the words "Black Lives Matter" on it. This was not an easy decision or process. There were many different feelings about the purpose and impact of such an action. Without revisiting all the issues associated, one specific fear expressed was the worry that this would make us a target of vandalism or some sort of violence. It is and was a serious concern. I actually was the minister of a congregation in the San Diego area that was the target of religious hate speech vandalism, and I can tell you it was not fun. It was a substantial violation of our community, of decency, and our sense of safety and security. It was also a reminder that what we're doing in the community and as a religious organization was important. When we hung our UUCF banner, I really didn't want to make it about marketing or make the focus of any vandalism be about our congregation. When we hung that banner, the assumption so often was, We wanted the other side to understand the importance of the concept or the words. We wanted to stake our claim in the community. But what was always more important to me is that when we hung that banner, that people in our congregation and in the broader community under siege for centuries, and more specifically threatened and targeted by the current people in power, would know that they could find a safe and brave space in our congregation. That this congregation was saying to the world, we have a moral calling to practice what we so often preach. That we will help ourselves live our values as we display mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, and withstand danger, fear, or difficulty, whether vandalism, violence, or threats. Doing this can and often is frightening. Taking any step out on a limb can bring about substantial discomfort. I have been on the end of anonymous threats of violence, and I will tell you that also is not very fun. And yet those who've been on the receiving end of vandalism, violence, or threats because of the color of their skin, or their homeland of origin, or whom they love, or their gender identity have been dealing with this for so much longer and with so much more severe consequences so far than hanging a banner outside of our congregation. I was on a call last week with almost 200 ministers from around the country talking about how to prepare their congregations for any further social and political upheaval, especially around the potential unrest around our elections. On that call, a couple of ministers presented. They were from congregations from Arizona on the border, dealing with ICE raids on humanitarian efforts. They were from Rochester, New York, where their congregation being a place of safety and medical attention for protesters in the midst of the protest in that city. And in the past few weeks, I've also been following the incredible situation happening at the Unitarian Universalist congregation in Louisville, which on more than one occasion sheltered protesters from the police as the police surrounded the congregation in the midst of the uprising around the murder of Breonna Taylor. The circumstances of their geography and their communities have placed these three congregations in the middle of things that we have been reading about in the news for months. And the potential risk and consequences go farther beyond what is safe or not to than even going to a movie or putting up a banner. Whether you agree or disagree with their decisions, their actions in these congregations or their interpretation of how this faith is calling on us to be fully present in this world, you cannot doubt their courage. And you cannot deny that certainly in these cases, their courage doesn't exist without danger. And I would like to add that Cedar Lane, I'd like to add you to this list because your decision to provide sanctuary for Rosa was a very courageous decision in the face of mounting pressure from immigration enforcement. Yet now, all of us here online today in this community and in this country are heading into a pretty significant time of unknown in the coming weeks. There will be UU congregations all across this country who are preparing for possible upheaval in the streets, on the streets that house their religious facilities. I don't anticipate riots or marches down the streets of Cedar Lane or Hunter Mill, the street out in front of UUCF, anytime in the near future. But of course, in these days, anything is possible. What is entirely possible is that we will somehow be called on not to just make decisions about the level of risk we are willing to take, but the actions of courage we will make in the face of danger. As many of you have heard, sometimes the job of ministry is to comfort the afflicted, and at other times it's to afflict the comfortable. I know very few people right now who are feeling comfortable. But I also know that part of my job and the job of a UU minister right now is to help prepare us for all kinds of possibilities. I firmly and fervently hope that things will go well and settle down after the election, for that is what I pray. However, I also feel compelled to ask, what will we do if any of our congregations will be needed for sanctuary, protection, or action as events unfold? Will some of us who never thought we would be in the streets in DC go if the nation needs willing souls to take to the streets? Will we be present at the polls to provide safety for those coming to vote in a free and fair election if the polls are threatened with intimidation or fear? Or, of course, at this point in this wild year of 2020, your guess is as good as mine about any of these things. I hope that our democracy is strong and can withstand the assault it is now taking. I hope that cooler heads will prevail and we will be touched by the better angels of our nature. I hope that we as a country will find a path forward to heal our wounds and move on to focusing on eliminating this virus. And yet, we must also prepare ourselves, grounded in this tradition and the calling of this faith, to help create a heaven here on earth, to be steeped in deeds, not creeds, and to recognize that Unitarian Universalism teaches us that the work of social justice, the work of creating beloved community, is the deeply, deeply spiritual center of this faith. Courage does not exist without danger, and these are difficult and dangerous times. There will again be a time and place to comfort us all. But in the meantime, let us be ready to answer this important question: how courageous are we ready to be? May that be so, and amen.